All right, ladies and gentlemen, round 2 of the NHL playoffs begin tonight. Oh, man, was I ever wrong on almost all my predictions? We're going to talk about the games that are on today. So let's just start with how insanely unpredictable the NHL is. I don't think there's any sport, anybody that knows what they're talking about, has ever watched, that is so unpredictable like the NHL playoffs. I had almost every pick wrong. Like everything was wrong. Every single one was wrong, but it's all good. I mean, I'm just making my predictions, my picks based off of what I see, based off of how these teams play. For tonight, we have 2 games on tap. We have the St. Louis Blues against the Dallas Stars, and we have the Columbus Blue Jackets against the Boston Bruins. Now, I'm a big Bruins fan. We'll get into that series in a moment, but let's first talk about the Dallas Stars against the Columbus Blue Jackets. No, that's not the series. Let's first talk about the Dallas Stars against the St. Louis Blues. For this series, I've pretty much watched every playoff game for the most part. I watched the whole series against Winnipeg. I picked Winnipeg to win that series in 7. I was very back and forth. I thought it was very possible St. Louis could win. I mean, whenever you pick a series in 7 games, you know that it could go either way. At that point, you're just more so guessing for the most part. That's why it's a prediction. For the Dallas series, I didn't think Dallas was going to win against Nashville. I thought Nashville was far stronger. I thought Pekka Rinne was a far better goaltender. I was way wrong on that. Dallas took over and they took care of business. So that's all right. Let's talk about this. So there's 3 huge factors for this series that I want to talk about today. First thing I want to talk about, more so a question. Can St. Louis run through Dallas like St. Louis ran through Winnipeg? First 2 games, all the games were close against Winnipeg. St. Louis and Winnipeg, very close. But for the majority of the series, if you just simply watch the condensed games of those games, you'll find that St. Louis played a far better game. Bennington was the biggest game changer in that series by a long shot, the MVP of that series, absolutely. But Winnipeg just could not get their game going. In a time where you're playing desperate hockey in Game 6 to survive in the series, take it back home for Game 7, Winnipeg did nothing. They did nothing. So there's a lot of questions in this series. Can St. Louis run through Dallas like they did Winnipeg? That's my question. Which leads me to the second point. Ben Bishop. The only way that St. Louis isn't going to run through Dallas like they ran through Winnipeg is because of Ben Bishop. Now, the reason why I say that is because I think Winnipeg is a far better team than Dallas as far as offensive lines 1-4, defensive lines 1-3. I think that they're a far more complete team, and they couldn't figure it out. They couldn't get it done. Okay, I don't think Dallas is going to be able to do any better job than Winnipeg is going to do unless Ben Bishop comes to play, because Hellebuck let a lot of soft goals in. He played okay. He played great at times, but he let a lot of soft goals in that were huge deterring factors to the series. A lot of his soft goals he let in were game-changing goals, and that just simply can't happen. Can Ben Bishop be the factor for Dallas to play St. Louis, to allow Dallas to play against St. Louis the way that they're going to want to play? We'll find out. Which brings me to my third point, Bennington. I really do think that even if Ben Bishop helps Dallas figure it out and not get steamrolled by St. Louis, even if they figure that out with Ben Bishop, I think that the only way they're going to beat St. Louis is if they can put pucks past Bennington on a consistent basis. Putting a goal past Bennington here and there, he shrugs stuff. I've never seen a goalie that shrugs a goal off. So, it's all good. You don't see, of course you see frustration, but you see him come back and play super good. That is something they're going to have to figure out. If they can't figure out Bennington, that's it. That's game over. In the end, I do think that St. Louis is going to take this series in Game 5. I do think they're going to steamroll Dallas. Dallas is not a better team than Winnipeg, in my opinion. I think this is what we're going to see. St. Louis in 5 games. Now, in this second one, Boston. Man, the Boston-Toronto series was so tight. One thing I do want to say is I'm not the type of fan who's going to have my team win, get in your face, take to Twitter, take to Instagram and Facebook, and chirp, chirp, chirp. Now, saying that, am I cheering every goal that goes in for the Bruins? Yeah. Every time the Bruins guy hits the ice and there's a Toronto player around, am I looking at the refs, wondering where the penalty is? Yeah, I am. Every time. I mean, even if a player loses his balance, there's not a Toronto player around, I'm whining. But that's the way this series was played. One thing I do want to note is I do think that the officiating needs to be far better in the playoffs. One thing I was thinking is the officiating is so bad right now. And then I was listening to Tim and Sid, their podcast, and I heard them say that in their opinion, officiating is the worst it's ever been, and technology is the best it's ever been. So what is happening right now? And I think the answer to that is the The officiating, it's all set. They're second guessing everything. They're not taking it for face value. They second guess everything. Like the whole Sharks and Vegas Golden Knights. The call was terrible. I mean, the fact that you let 4 goals in on the power play alone is awful. So you can't completely blame the officiating for that. But in a sense, you kind of do have to blame the officiating for that, because if that call is called correctly, it changes the whole complex of the game. And I think we can all agree on that. Columbus steamrolling Tampa, that's something like really nobody called. Sure, you can maybe guess that, but you can't predict that, and you can't be sure of that. That was unbelievable the way Columbus played. They let in 3 goals in the very first game against Tampa. Since that moment, they completely dominated this series. Completely dominated. And I don't think in the hockey world, between myself being, a young fan and my father being an old fan, we've seen that before. A team that's arguably one of the best teams in the NHL history gets swept so decisively, not even close. Unbelievable. But here, in this series, I think it's going to be a bit different. Because, sure, yeah, I'm a Boston fan. But this is just different. For whatever reason, I question myself even now. I don't understand what Boston was doing playing Toronto's game all series long. Toronto outplayed Boston all series long. What they were doing, I have no idea. They should have lost Game 7. They should have lost Game 6, but Boston capitalized on their opportunities, and they played Toronto's game, and they played really well while playing Toronto's game. They figured it out. But that's not Boston's game. Boston doesn't play an overly fast hockey like Toronto. Here's where things are going to change a little bit against Columbus. Columbus plays a hard-hitting style, physical, in-your-face, confrontational style hockey. That's a lot. Boston, they take to the physical play really well. They take to the confrontational style really well. What are we going to see in this series? I think we're going to see Boston figure out the way they want to play against Columbus a lot better than they figured it out against Toronto. They could not get out of playing Toronto-style hockey, and they still won. The way I look at it, Boston has a lot of players that didn't peak in that series. Pastrnak had 2 goals in one of the games. Other than that, he was effective, but he wasn't scoring goals the way he normally did during the season. I think he's going to burst out of his little bubble, and I think he's going to be scoring goals in this series, and that's going to be the game changer. Columbus is going to come out hitting, we know that. But they're hitting, their physicality, that's what leads to their goals. Boston plays that style really well, and Tampa just couldn't figure it out. Tampa just seemed flustered at all times. They were getting hit on every play, and Columbus was putting the body to them, and that's what changed the game. Boston doesn't mind the style of hockey where you're putting the body on them. They're going to take to that style, and they're going to give it right back. This is why I'm picking Boston also in 5 games. Super out there. I know that my predictions in the first series, they were kind of on the safe side, to be honest. That's why with my predictions here, I'm going to go on the more aggressive side. I'm picking both series to end in 5 games. I know that it seems a little out there, but those are my predictions. I think my reasoning behind them kind of makes sense, but we'll see what happens. After the first game, second game, I think it's going to open up, and we'll see the actual series play out. And maybe things are going to go in the way that I think they're going to go, and maybe they won't. I guess we'll see. Regardless, we have 2 entertaining series starts tonight, and I'm looking forward to watching both hockey games. Thank you guys for watching. I make these videos for one main reason. It's to create conversation. I love creating content. I love hockey. I love playoff hockey. And again, even if the Bruins were out, I'd be making these videos and these predictions for YouTube and for conversations to get created. Feel free to like this video. Feel free to comment on this video if you have anything that you disagree with or you agree with anything that I said in this video. And make sure to also subscribe for more videos to come. Tomorrow I'll be putting out a video on the 2 series that start tomorrow evening. We'll catch you guys in that one. Take care.